bundle of joy and happiness to every family, you know, especially to a young couple. And of course, what happens in a situation where the norm is cast, and you know, something like a disease, you know, comes into the picture, and you know, brings so much tension, brings so much worry in the parents' lives at a very young age of that child. Today we are going to share with you Louisa's story, and she's going to tell us about, you know, how she's been able to deal with this. Before I tell you the topic, and just how, you know, you and I can be able to get help in future, just in case we find ourselves in such a situation. She's just basically going to shed light on what we are talking about today, which is heart complications, and specifically heart complications in children, because there are some children that are born with a hole in the heart. How then do you care for these children? What do you do? You know, how do you handle this situation, and how do you make sure that this child lives a normal and healthy life? Well, before we get into, you know, our topic of discussion, I want you guys to watch this video.
A ventricular septal defect, or VSD, is a birth defect where there is an abnormal connection between the two ventricles of the heart. VSDs are the most common heart defect. The heart is a single organ that functions as a pump for two circulation systems. The first system, called the pulmonary circulation, brings blood poor in oxygen and rich in carbon dioxide, that is, oxygen-poor blood, through the lungs, which makes it rich in oxygen and poor in carbon dioxide, that is, oxygen-rich blood. The ventricles are the power pumps of the heart. The wall between the two ventricles is called the ventricular septum. The left ventricle pumps at a higher pressure than the right ventricle, so any hole in the septum results in blood pumping from the left ventricle to the right ventricle. This causes some red blood to mix with the blue blood in the right ventricle. This abnormal flow can be heard as a heart murmur. VSDs are often first detected as heart murmurs when a doctor examines a child. VSDs come in different sizes and locations, and the treatment depends on other factors as well. VSDs may also be a part of a syndrome of other heart defects. Smaller VSDs may cause no problems and are left to close by themselves. As the size of the VSD increases, symptoms tend to get more severe and present earlier on in life. The most common symptoms include shortness of breath, failure to gain weight, sweating while being fed, and frequent respiratory infections. Due to the severity of these symptoms with larger defects, surgical closure of VSD might be needed. This involves sewing a patch of material to cover the hole. Eventually, the tissue of the heart heals over the patch or stitches.
Ventricular septal defect, also in layman's terms, a child who's born with a hole in the heart. We need to know the do's and don'ts, how to handle these kids, where to seek help, and you know, so much more. And Louisa, who is a member of the Kenya Mended Patients Association, is here to share with us her story, you know, having first-hand experience. We would like to hear your views and your questions on 22162. Start with the word circuit. You can find us on social social media at A Circuit TV show. My name is Christine Kai. Welcome to Real Talk, and let's get right into it. So, you know, just using the layman's language, which is easier for people to understand, is, you know, there are children who are born with a hole in the heart. What really is this condition?
Well, it's a congenital heart defect, which means that the child is born with the defect.
Yes.
And normally you find out either at birth, sometimes you're able to find out even before birth, especially in the developed countries. But for myself, I found out after 2 months. After the child was 2 months old, he got sick. And he used to get these respiratory infections, took him to hospital. And the first time when he really got sick, I was told that he has pneumonia. But what I didn't know, what I didn't understand is that I was being told that it's pneumonia, and yet he had not been tested.
Yes.
So when I was told that it's pneumonia, I differed with the doctor. And I told him that he gives me medication for the child, because he had said that the child should be admitted, but I refused to have the admission. I took the child home. After a day or two, the medication wasn't working. I had to take him back to hospital, a different hospital. And he was tested and found to be suffering from bronchiolitis. Bronchiolitis is more like bronchitis, but in small children. And when he was found to have bronchiolitis, he had to be admitted, because bronchiolitis is a viral infection. And for viral infections, there is no treatment, you just manage. So he had to be admitted, took him to Mater Hospital. And at that point, that's when I found out that he has the congenital heart defect at 2 months. And I would say that for me, it was a blessing in disguise, him getting affected, him getting the infections, because I wouldn't have known that he had a congenital heart defect. But I'm glad that I found out early enough. Some people are not lucky to find out early. Kids get sick every other time, and you find that your child is always getting sick, but you don't know what is happening to the child. For me, I was lucky to find out early enough. So when I got to hospital, he was checked, started treatment for bronchiolitis. And in one of the reviews, when the doctor came to check on him, she told me that he has a heart murmur. At that time, I didn't know what's a murmur. So they said that he has to go for a further test. He was done an X-ray. They said that he has an enlarged heart. All these things were happening so fast for me, and I really didn't know what it meant. Then Dr. Gashara, a pediatric cardiologist, came and checked on him, said that he has to have an echo. In full terms, it's an echocardiogram. He went for an echo, and at that point, that's when she revealed to me that the child had a heart defect. In layman's terms, a hole in the heart. For me, when I was told a hole in the heart, all this time, all along, I've known that a hole in the heart is just a hole. But at that point, that's when I started now reading and trying to find out what is this. Yeah, and it was quite a tough time. And I would say that when this was discovered, so I came to learn so much about congenital heart defects that I didn't know before. And after that, that's when I felt that it's important that I enlighten people, because myself, until that time, I didn't know what it was. So I knew that definitely so many other people don't know what this is. Until you're affected, that's when you really realize what it is.
And you know, I'm very sure, you know, most people would think that, like you've said, it's a hole in the heart. So maybe you could give us just a description of really what is it? What does it mean, you know, for the kid to have a hole in the heart?
Okay, I would say that there are different kinds of defects. My child has a ventricular septal defect. And for the ventricular septal defect, what happens is that the oxygenated blood mixes with the deoxygenated blood. So there is like a septum, a hole between the left ventricle and the right ventricle. So the oxygenated blood mixes with the oxygenated blood. So you find that instead of the oxygenated blood going to the oxygen going to the body, the deoxygenated blood now causes the lungs to have, we call it, like in layman terms, we call it like to have water. But in real sense, it's the blood going back to the lungs, the oxygenated blood going back to the lungs instead of going to the rest of the body. So you find most of the times the defect causes this person to always be tired and to have this, what I would call having bluish skin. But for my child, I would say it had not gotten to that point of having bluish skin. And you're always sweaty. And when you're being fed, especially, when the child is being fed, he really sweats. Or when maybe he's going for a long call, because it takes up so much energy. Yeah.
So those are some of the signs and symptoms that, you know, you got to see, and then you wouldn't understand what exactly is happening to my child.
Actually, what happened at first is that he would feed when he was breastfeeding. He would feed for some time and then stop feeding. Then he would start sleeping. And I would think it's normal that my child maybe is well fed. He would start sleeping at some point. But what started worrying me was that he got to a point that he was not gaining weight. He actually started losing weight. But luckily for me, like I said, I was able to find out early enough, as opposed to other people who find out so much later when so much damage has been done to the body.
So it is a condition that cannot be cured. It will just be maintained over time, right?
Yeah.
So maybe what is the lifespan? Like, did your doctors tell you, like, this is probably how long your child could live, or, you know, they could live for as long as possible, or does it have a particular lifespan?
Well, for me, I would say my child is lucky because, like I said, once the treatment is started early, you're able to manage it early, and you can live a healthy life all your life. You don't have like to live like for 5, 10 years. You can live a healthy life as long as it's being managed properly. And I would say, like, for my child, I was told that he may have to go for a surgery. Up to now, he has not gone for a surgery. 1 year later, he's now 1 year old, 1 year, a month old. He has not yet gone for surgery, but I'm hopeful, and I know that he may not have to go for surgery based on what has been happening, based on the medication he has been taking. And you find that for some children, they have to go for surgery for them to be treated. But still, it's a lifelong thing that you have to really manage. Yeah, but for my child, it's most likely he may not go for surgery based on the kind of feedback I've been getting from the doctor. Yeah.
So, you know, how was it for you, you know, your family, that's your second-born kid?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, the older sibling, you know, for you, your family, your parents, how was it? How did you guys, you know, receive it and handle it?
Well, it was quite shocking. It was quite emotionally draining. I remember I stayed in hospital for about 8 days. And during that period, it still hadn't hit me that my child is suffering from a heart defect. I really didn't understand what are the repercussions of that. My family, I can say they took it well. They've been really supportive. I can say my husband has been very supportive. My parents have also been very supportive. My siblings, my friends, people have been so supportive. And it's their support that has kept me going. And also the support of the association that I joined. I would say that is what has kept me going. They really didn't take it well. They also didn't know. But from that time, we took it upon ourselves, all of us, to learn about this, how to care for this child, how to help other children who are going through this. and it's been quite a journey.
And now that we're talking about how to care for this child,
Yeah.
maybe let's just break it down in terms of, we can start with the nutrition, the feeding and that side of it. What are the do's and the don'ts in terms of, the feeding habits of, a child who's suffering from, this particular disorder?
Well, for the feeding habits, you have to be very patient, because like for my child, when he was getting tired, when the child gets tired of breastfeeding, because you see there's a lot of, when you're suckling, you use up a lot of energy. So the child tends to really get tired. And when they get tired, they stop feeding and start sleeping. So for some people, they think that the child is fine. But what I learned from my doctor is that once you breastfeed, at that point until the child is 6 months for the exclusive breastfeeding, once the child breastfeeds until they are maybe tired, you now need to do some supplementing. You need to supplement with a cup. So that's what I used to do when the child got to that point that they're tired. I now use a cup, put the breast milk in a cup and give him, so that at least with a cup he won't need to suckle. He won't need to get tired. So with that, at least you're able to keep up with the weight. And besides that, once you also need to use maybe high calorie formula. So I used to buy high calorie formula, which I would supplement also with, and that helped a lot. Then after 6 months, you need to make sure that the child is feeding well and feeding as often as possible. My child feeds like after every 2 hours or so, because he's very active, and now being active means that he's using a lot of energy, so I have to keep feeding him. So you have to really be patient when it comes to issues of feeding, and you have to really take your time with the child and really make sure that the child is full. Yeah, because most of the times he appears like he has stopped feeding, so you think that he's full, but he's not. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Right now, your child is, still young, but as he grows older, and starts feeding some more, are there certain foods that the doctor says that you will have to make sure that his diet, in his diet, that those foods are present?
Well, not really. You just need to make sure that you're giving him a balanced diet. Yeah, and you make sure that you're giving him high energy foods, because really he uses up a lot of energy. So you have to really give him a lot of high energy foods.
And then at this particular point, at 1 year old, is when the child is very active. They're learning how to walk. They're learning how to do various things. Like how has that been? As in, has it affected him that his development is a bit slower than it should be, or how is the situation?
Well, for my child, I would say it's not been that bad, because he's been developing normally like any other child. But for some children, you find that they're quite slow. Maybe some even take so much time before they can even sit on their own. You can find a child sitting at maybe a year and a half. So by the time they get to crawling and walking, the child could be 2-3 years old. But I would say, like for my child, it's not been that bad, because right now he's 1 year old. He's walking around with stuff, but he's yet to walk on his own. But when you let him walk, he's able to walk from one point to another. So I would say for developmental wise, it's been good. But again, it also depends so much on the nutrition. So you have to really give him a balanced diet. Make sure you follow up with the doctor. When you have the appointments, make sure you keep the appointments so that you advised accordingly, depending on the development of your child.
All right. So we are talking about ventricular septal disorder. That is basically in layman language rather, that is children who have a hole in the heart. And if you guys have any questions, any comments on this, do send them to 22162 to start with the word circuit. All right, so how often do you have to keep on going to visit the doctor for checkups and all that?
At first it was monthly, because no, actually it was after every 2 weeks for the first month or so. Then after that it became monthly, and after some time it gets to after 3 months. Now right now the next appointment I have is after 6 months. So that means that my child is improving.
Yes.
Because if he was not improving, I would be having to go as often as possible. But now with the improvement, that means that I can, sometimes it can even take a year for you to see the doctor, depending on how the doctor sees the child.
And how serious the condition is.
How serious the condition is, yes.
All right. So, I mean, I know we've talked about some of your challenges, you know, you have to be patient, you know, probably it's more different, you know, raising him than, you know, your firstborn. But what are some of the other challenges that, you know, you face as a parent, and even maybe the siblings, you know, the sibling faces?
Some of the challenges I would say is you have to spend a lot of money. For instance, there's a medicine, it's called Aldacton, that I have to get from the hospital after every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I have to spend money on Aldacton. There's also another medicine that is called Lasix. That one is the one that helps to clear out the fluid buildup. That one is also very expensive. And for some, at some point we were taking certain medication for reducing the heart rate, which was also very expensive, but at least now we are not using that. But for some parents, you find that it gets very expensive because you have to spend so much on the medication, the doctor's visits. Sometimes you're referred to India or for some surgery even locally. That is money, you have to spend money. So those are some of the challenges, apart from the diet, which of course you have to really take care of and which costs money. The other challenge is the money that you spend on medication. All
right. All right. So it is a disease that could be caused by either genetics or even the environment, you know, that the child is in. So for your child, was it genetics, was it the environment, and what is usually the case in most cases?
Actually, you find that in most cases it's neither genetic or the environment. It just happens. You don't even know the cause. Like for myself, I can say that when I found out about it, I started asking myself, what is it that I didn't do? What is it that I did wrong? But I realized for my second child, I actually, like for the supplements, I took the supplements, like I was very keen on that. For my first child, I never took supplements. I just made sure that I did a good diet. For my second child, I took supplements, I did a good diet, started my appointments early enough, but he still got the defect. So really, for sometimes you ask yourself questions, you think that maybe there's something you did wrong, but really there's nothing you did wrong. It just happens. And I would say that up to now, the real cause of these defects has not been found out. And I'm hoping that with time, with the research and all, maybe we can find out what really causes these defects. Because all over the world, actually, nobody knows. Apart from, okay, for sometimes you find that maybe the environment can cause such defects, but most of the times the children who suffer from these defects, we don't know the cause. The cause is not known.
All right. And then, so, you know, for you it took it didn't take such a long time for the doctors, you know, to discover. However, they had so many diagnoses which were not correct, you know, before they discovered. And of course, for some people, even it takes longer for doctors to discover what's going on with their child. So, like, what would be your view or your comment on, you know, the ability of, you know, our Kenyan hospitals, our Kenyan doctors to be able to detect some of these diseases, like, you know, especially the heart disease, really fast, and, you know, try to do something about it early?
Well, I would say that we are lacking in that area, because you find, like in other hospitals, mostly in the developed countries, you find that even before the child is born, you already know that my child is it has a heart defect. But here, until your child is born, that's when you find out that he has a defect. Sometimes it takes years. The child keeps getting these respiratory infections. But I would say that maybe we need to work on that as a country, put in more funding on researching on this, because you find that if we can get the detection early enough, then that would mean that someone would start treatment early enough, and we would not have to lose so many cases, because we find so many kids dying out because of this condition, just because it was not found out early enough. Yeah, so if we can just work on researching on this and put in more funding on detection and do more testing at birth, if not before birth, so that at least before the child leaves the hospital, you already know what the child is suffering from, and you can start treatment immediately.
Yes, you can start to prepare yourself, you know, for that. So then, you know, after all this, you decided to join an organization, you know, to just help you go through this and even understand it. That's the Kenya Mended Heart Patients Association. So just maybe tell us a bit about what does this organization do, you know, for parents who have, you know, children who are suffering from heart diseases.
Well, this organization, we mainly create awareness on these conditions, and most importantly, we offer support to each other, because we know we are there for each other, we understand each other. So that was actually my main reason for joining this organization, because after I left the hospital, we were really drained. I was emotionally drained. And I started looking for organizations that can maybe be working with such like things. So that's where I found out about the Kenya Mended Heart Association. So normally we offer support to each other. We help with creating awareness. We are also working on building partnerships with both the private and the public sector. I can say that so far we've been working very well with NHIF, because they help with getting us, especially for the kids that are going out of the country for treatment, they're able to get you a good hospital, and they pay for the bills, of course, up to a certain point. And we are looking forward to more partnerships, both with the government and the non-governmental organizations. And I know that with that, we are going to be able to create more awareness. And we are also going to be able to help more people who may not be able to, who may not have the money for the treatment. Yes, and apart from that, we also ensure that we take part in the heart activities, like the Matter Heart Run, all these heart runs. We have a World Heart Day coming up on 29th of this month, which we are going to be taking part in. So really, we are trying as much as possible to form as many partnerships as possible, and to create as much awareness as possible.
All right, just give us a bit more details on the heart event that's on the 29th of this month.
We are going to have the World Heart Day, which is going to be at Uhuru Park. We are partnering with the Kenya Cardiac Society. Mainly the activities that will be there, it will just be like a fun day for the heart patients, and also a place to learn more about this. People will have screening for hypertension, diabetes. We'll have dance classes. It will just be a fun day for all of us, where we get to meet, network, get to learn from each other, and support each other.
All right, are there any charges?
No, it's free.
It's free.
It's free for everyone.
All right. Wow, that's actually amazing, you know. Also, maybe you can share with us your social media handles. You know, if anyone is watching and they have, you know, any questions regarding that, and also the social media handles of the organization.
I can do that right away?
Yes, right away. Please do.
Well, my social media handle is Twitter at K_Louisa. Facebook, Luisa Kamau, and Instagram, Luisa Kamau. For the Kenya Mended Hearts Association, we have a Facebook page, Kenya Mended Hearts Association, and we also have a Twitter handle, RHD_CHD, which mainly is congenital heart defects, rheumatic heart defects, heart diseases. So yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
of course, we support you. You guys go out there and support, all these kids who are having heart conditions, and you can also get tested, for other things like diabetes, which is very important for you to know about your health, and to just be healthy. Knowledge is power. I mean, right?
Sure.
Yes, of course. But thank you so much, Luisa, for coming and sharing your story, with us.
Sure, thank you very much.
All right. We've come to the end of Real Talk today. I do hope that you guys have learned one or two things. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your feedback. Of course, keep sending those questions. We will make sure that Luisa receives them and is able to get back to you. Now, of course, join us next week as we talk so much more about all these topics affecting us. And yes, we do understand that most of you have so many questions about infertility, so we will be able to get you guys someone to just answer all those questions. So do send them to our SMS line 22162. Start with the word circuit, and also you can do that on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just slide into our DM, drop your questions, drop your comments. We will definitely get that episode for you together. Thank you so much. My name is Christine K. Do have a blessed day.